Happy New Year! This is the Opt-In Podcast. I am Melissa Franks, your host, and this is where we go from surviving to thriving in business. Am I even allowed to wish you Happy New Year anymore? It's the middle of January, and I have to admit, holidays that fall on Wednesdays and then a holiday period that follows just freaking confuse me. I don't know if I'm supposed to continue to give well wishes through the end of the month, if I should have stopped after the second, but nobody was really back until this week anyway, so I'm confused. So if you're confused like me too, Happy New Year, best of wishes. I hope you have an amazing year to come. And today we are going to specifically talk about the month of January and then expand a little bit into a conversation around the first quarter. In small business, more than anywhere else, but specifically small businesses that have had a little bit of success. So maybe you set your goals of hitting six figures for the first time and you did it, or you wanted to be $1 million business and you did it, or your business surprised the heck out of you and you grew like crazy and you're not sure what's happening. Generally speaking, it's those businesses that are doing pretty okay where this happens the most. It does happen with every single business owner. And what happens is January comes, and after some rest and recharging with the family, you decide to burn it all down. You just do. You rethink every decision, everything that you've implemented, every system, every process, every product, every service, something happens and January comes and it's like you have an existential crisis in your business and you rethink everything and then immediately jump to, I need to burn it all down and start over. It is wild to me. And I have seen this happen so many times that I now need to say something because I'm getting a little bit concerned about all of you. And I feel like I am your business bestie or your big sister in business or just like your conscience. And I need to shout from the rooftops that you are about to enter a dangerous situation. And I want to talk to you about exactly why you shouldn't ever make a change in your business in January. Now, if you have been here for a minute, because you know what? I think this is our third January together. The podcast started like right at the end of the year in 2022. So like we're coming in, we're rocking and rolling. This is our third January. We were together in 23 and 24. Well, happy third birthday. Anyway, we didn't even celebrate the birthday of the podcast. I am distracted. So let's talk about January. Let's talk about your business. If you have followed along in the over 100 episodes that are now available to you, you know that my preference, my encouragement is for you to do your annual planning in November or early December for the upcoming year. And the reason for that is because you have 10 to 11 months worth of information about the year that you're in. You have historical information from the prior years, and you know enough, and you have enough data to understand the trends of your business to be able to make informed decisions about what you will and what you won't do going forward and what you'll try. So I like to recommend that it happens, kind of in that period of Black Friday's over, but people aren't leaving for the holidays yet. I like that period of time to do this in. And it's because you're still in it. And what I mean by that is that you're still in the swing of your business. You're either like sprinting towards your year-end goal and you're so close to making it that if you just put in a little bit of effort, you'll get there. You've already made your goals for the year, so you're a little bit more relaxed, but you're still in it. You haven't given up and closed out the year just yet. And you still have a immense understanding of what the day-to-day is like inside of your business. And so you know what the pain points are, what you're struggling with, if you're overextended or you could provide a little more capacity in a certain area, what's going on with your team. When you come back in January, even if you've just taken a few days off, there's something about the holiday period where everything slows down. I worked through the whole holiday period this year, and I can tell you it was immeasurably slower. My habits were different because the kids were out of school and people weren't working, and it just was like a funky time. And when you come back in January, you have a little bit of business amnesia. And one of two things happens. Either you don't exactly remember how things were, and so you start romanticizing them, or you don't exactly remember how things were and you doomsday yourself. Either way, it's problematic. This is why I recommend that you do all of your planning actions and activities long before you take a break. Just long before. Because what you're going to be able to do if you follow the growth formula framework, the framework is in your show notes and you can download it for free if you would like it. But if you follow the growth formula framework, what you're going to learn is step one is for you to reflect. And what that is that you're really looking backwards over your shoulder and you're saying, what happened? What's going on? What can I see? What can I decipher? What can I understand? You're doing a review. Another person that does a really great job of explaining how to do a year in review is Rachel Hollis. She's got her own method and practice for that, slightly different than mine. Mine is incredibly business-centric and focused. Hers is more life coachy, life skills focused. They both kind of get to the same ends for that first step of the growth formula framework, which is the review step. But regardless, you got to look backwards before you can go forwards. You just do. It's kind of like if you've ever been in a parking space, you know, y'all drive, you've parked in a parking space and you go head in first and then you have to back out to get out. So you have to look over your shoulder and you got to check your mirrors and you got to look some more and you got to lean, you got to do a bunch of stuff and you got to is it safe? What's going on? What's happening behind me? And once you figure that out and you know that it's safe to proceed, you can maneuver yourself so that you eventually start going forward. This is exactly the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. It's having awareness of your surroundings and what has happened and making sure that you have a clear path in order to move in the direction that you want to go. Full stop. Exactly like driving. So if you do that activity while the year is coming to a close, then you come into January and you know exactly what you have to do. Whenever you've returned to the business, whenever your team has come back from the holiday period, everybody knows. They know what their goals are. They know how their performance is going to be measured. If their roles have changed at all, that's already been done and addressed. And they know exactly what's expected of them day one when they get back after the holiday period. And you know what you're expecting of yourself and them and what goals you're working towards. It's just amazing. It's like when you go on vacation. And if you do it in a really intentional way, you put everything away. You leave a clean house for yourself. So when you walk back in, you have clean sheets. There's no mess. You don't have to worry about cleaning a bathroom. There's toilet paper where they're supposed to be there. You can literally walk right back into your life and it's pristine and perfect. It's exactly like that when you plan in November or early December. Now, I'm a realist and I know that about 3% of all of you follow my advice. And the reason that I know it's only 3% of you is because over the course of 25 years, I honed that habit and practice to know empirically that it is the best way to move through the business world. You, my young loves, just don't have my maturity in that regard, which is why I'm here to counsel you and talk to you about the month of January. Let's call this an intervention. So if you're not a part of that 3% that's rolling into January, you're as clear can be because you already did your planning, you know you got to do, your team's humming along and you know what's what, then you're a part of the 97% that is scrambling. And here's what happens. You come back and you're refreshed and likely you have had some time to sit with yourself and you've hopefully adopted some new habits that are going to better your life. You've made a new commitment to how much you're going to work and how much you're going to love your life and live it and do all the things. And generally there's some personal things in the midst that have come into play. And so you come back into the business and you're like, at all costs, I got to keep these boundaries in place. And I support boundaries 1,000,000%. So I'm very happy for you. You also assume that you have to be on the offensive. And so what ends up happening is you start looking critically at everything. And we all know often, depending on our business model, January is a smidge slow. And if the first few weeks of January aren't slow, wait till the credit card bills roll in January 20th. People stop spending money. They just do. And they usually pick back up in February or March, but January historically in business across the board is a slow month. It just is. People are hesitant to buy, hesitant to take action. Here's the other thing. People are distracted. So unless you are selling something specifically that is the solution to fast tracking goal attainment for the goal or resolution that they set, you're distracting. Your business is distracting. What you're offering is distracting. It's just a normal human out in the world that would buy your stuff. They're distracted because January is when they're reinventing themselves. So if they are looking to you, if they are an existing customer or client, if they are searching for new solutions, you know what they're looking for? They're looking for stability and predictability and consistency. They're looking at the businesses and the brands where they know what they're going to get, and it's what they get when they go there. They're not looking for a business that's like, I'm right there in the swimming pool with you and we're reinventing everything. We've set new goals and we've set boundaries and we've got this new thing and like, oh my gosh, new year, new us. They're not looking for that. They're overwhelmed by their own commitments to the new year, new you, them. They're overwhelmed by the 75 hard that they committed to. They are overwhelmed by dry January and trying to navigate the lingering social engagements where they've got to explain that they're not drinking, but it's only for 30 days and this is why and it's their health and blah, blah, blah. They're overwhelmed and consumed with the commitments that they made to themselves to start the new year in a certain way. And so the very best chance that you have of capturing their attention, of retaining their business, of selling whatever it is that you've got, is by being consistent. It's by them understanding that you are exactly the same business that you were in December in January. January is not the month for you to burn it all down. It is just not. And I know now you're saying, but I know what I need to do and I know it's going to serve people so well and I get it and I'm not telling you not to. I'm just telling you not to do it right now. Can you successfully burn your business down in January? Yes. Is it immeasurably more difficult to launch that way? Yes. So Melissa, what's your recommendation? Because I didn't do what you told me and I didn't plan in November and December. So now I'm desperate and I want to do this thing and I'm super excited about it. It's all I can think about and I'm not sleeping because I want to hum and haw. Cool. You know what you do? You plan. You know what you do right now? You evaluate your business. You do that step 1 of the growth formula framework and you look behind you and you look at every single thing going on in your business right now. Is it working? Why is it working? Ask the 5 whys. Is this working? Why? 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 You are a 3-year-old. Why? Keep asking why until you get to the end. Until you know empirically with evidence, and I mean data, that the thing that you think is working is. And then do it again for the thing that you think is broken and you need to fix. And then look at your business and say, what do I want to do again? Because here is the spoiler alert, friends. If you are in business for multiple years, you know what your goal is every January? To do it again. If you made $1 million last year, you know what your very first goal is? To make $1 million this year. We overcomplicate the narrative. We overcomplicate the storyline because we start setting a goal so far astronomically in the future because we get so dazzled by 10x is great, it's easier than 2x, that we stop to miss the plot line. The way that you get to 10x is by doing 2x excellently. Getting to 10x doesn't mean you stop doing the things that got you to 1x and that will get you to 2x. It means and. It means and. And so what that means for you is that before you burn it down, before you change everything, before you stop doing one thing to start doing another, the first thing you have to understand is if it makes sense to do it. Because your number 1 goal, before all else, is to do it again. I have never met a business owner, a CEO, a founder, a board member, an investor, hedge fund manager, a venture capital, angel investor. I've never met a single one of them that said that they were okay with a business losing ground in pursuit of an idea. Never once. And let me tell you, I have met many of the biggest players in the business. Never once The very first principle of business is to preserve the ground that you've already secured and then go get more. So before you think about changing something in January because you were inspired, the first thing that you have to do is say, how can I do it again and again and again? And then once you have that answer, once you've looked back and maybe some of what you're doing was a bad idea. Maybe it was taking a significant amount of capacity. Maybe it was costing a whole bunch of money and you weren't seeing a return. Maybe it was something in your business that you couldn't scale, so it got you to $1 million, but you can't sell any more of it in its current construct. Maybe you launched something last year and it took off like wildfire, but you're at your max. And you're like, I can't. In fact, if I try to do that again the way that it is, I can't do all of these other things that people are asking for. That's okay. But the month of January, if you didn't do it when I asked you to, if you didn't do it when the 25 years of experience that I have knows is best, you're okay. But that's why you take the month of January and you don't change a single thing, because you take the month of January to look backwards and really evaluate, what can I replicate? What's repeatable back there? What makes sense to do again? How do I get my business to be stable, to be generating the income that I need? Because here's the other thing about this is you hit $1 million last year. You know what also happened? You grew your team to support $1 million business. So what you can't do is only make $500,000 this year because you pivoted, because you now have $1 million worth of expense inside of your business. So think about it. When you were making $500,000 in your business, how many people were working for you? How many tools did you have? Did you have office space? How many people are on payroll? How are you managing social media, your email list, your inventory? Just think about it for a second. Are you doing it the same way now at $1 million? I guarantee you are not. Your expense profile has gotten bigger because your revenue pool has gotten bigger, because you need to spend more money to support a bigger business. So if you think you're going to adjust your business, and it's okay if you take a backslide because eventually it will propel forward, little slingshot action, if I just pull myself back, I'm going to propel 10x forward. You better make darn sure you have enough money in the bank to cover the expense gap that you're going to have until your revenue settles back where you started. This is why I advise, before you ever do anything new and different, it's always an and, it's not an or. How to make sure that the business that you now have established, it has this expected floor of revenue, continues to occur. So in January, you change nothing. In January, you assess and evaluate and you plan and you determine exactly how you can take fast action in your business and make the changes that you want to make based on the informed decisions that you have, while protecting your revenue position and your expense lines and delivering with excellence and quality. Because here is the third piece of this. Those that have purchased from you before, those that are current clients, those that want to, have an expectation of service and experience and quality. And we all know when we do something new or we change something, quality can suffer, the experience changes, and people get a little bit upset. I mean, it's even to the point where, like, I don't remember what chain it was, they switched out the plastic straw for the paper straw and there was a freaking revolt. Have you ever seen what happens when Starbucks tries to change a cup? This is what I mean, people. When you make a change in your business, you need to have enough intentionality to be able to account for the disruption that it's going to cause in your current space. And so that's why you ensure that you can continue to keep the business running, you can continue to get the revenue coming in while you experiment with new things. Growth is inevitable in your business. If you want to 10x, change is inevitable in your business. It needs to be done with intentionality, and you need to do it in a way for where you can measure success. And you need to understand if your business and its current instantiation can support whatever you're going to try to do next. And just changing it all in January and hoping for the best is the worst possible way to do it. The last thing that I'm going to say about January specifically, and we're going to talk about first quarter a little bit, and then I'm going to let y'all go, is that depending on the human, their plate is full with change and they can't absorb anymore. They just cannot. They cannot absorb a price change. They cannot absorb like a tweak to how something is set up. They can't absorb the fact you're changing the quantity in the product that you're delivering. They're dealing with so much change management for the other things that they're focused on, whether it's that they're coming back to their job and they have new stretch goals for the year and they really need to focus on that, or they've defined health goals for themselves, or they have a partner that's really making some key life decisions, or it's just freaking the dead of winter and they're buried in snow and can't leave their house and sent their kids back to school for one day and all of a sudden realize that they're still on winter break because the schools are closed again. Or as is in real time, there is all of this climate change, wildfires, tornadoes, massive blizzards, et cetera, happening in the world. They're distracted by current events. This January, there is a changing of the guard politically. People are freaking distracted. They are processing their own change management. And the best way for you to keep them sticky and in your world and happy and satisfied and paying for what you offer is by just staying consistent. So that opens us up to what do we do for the rest of the quarter. So Melissa, you told us not to change anything in January, but and you also told us that the first quarter is sometimes pretty slow. So when can we change the business? You can change it whenever you want. This is just my opinion and advice. You can do whatever you want. You know your people the best, you know your clients the best, you know your business the best. So you do you. But what I would say is that first quarter is also an excellent time for you to introduce change in a stepped process. And what I mean by that is January is the month where you plan whatever you're going to do. February is the month where you do it. And then starting with March, you measure. And depending on what you're changing in the business, you should probably pick 2 quarters a year where you're changing. And so what you're really doing is you're keeping yourself stable in the second and fourth quarters, and you can make changes in first and third is usually how I recommend I see the most success with businesses that way. The cool thing about making changes in the third quarter, to get off on a tangent for a second, is that you've made all of those changes and then you get the rush of fourth quarter buyers. And so they benefit from the changes that you make in your business then. But with first quarter, you use January to plan, because if you didn't plan, all joking aside, if you didn't plan in November or December and you're now coming back fresh, you really need the full month of January because you're running your business and you're planning your year at the same time. You need January to go through that growth formula framework and really figure yourself out. And then February is where you begin the implementation and you start the measurement periods. And you need at least 6 weeks to measure your changes. So ideally, if you're able to implement something in the first 2 weeks of February, you need those 6 weeks and beyond to see what's happening and to track the data. And a part of building that plan is, what are we going to do? How are we going to do it? How are we going to measure the results? Who's ultimately accountable for what we're doing, and how are we going to keep everything else running? Those are really the things that you want to look at as you go forward with this. And then by the time you hit, February 15th or whatever, and you've got your changes implemented, then you're just measuring. You're measuring as you're seeing what's happening. And then as you get a few weeks of data, then you can start to iterate and adjust and pivot and do some things differently. But it's really kind of a testing cycle. And then if you're not introducing change in the second quarter, like I recommended, then it allows you another 12-week period for you to really hone, refine, and stabilize whatever it is that you're selling, and continue to adjust the existing business that you have so that it is pretty steady with what you need to do and execute. So ideally, and if you're watching the YouTube video, you'll be able to see this. If you can't, what I want you to do is, in your brain, think of 2 lanes of traffic, and one of them is the slow lane and one of them is fast lane. And your steady state business, that business that got you to $1 million, if we stick with that example, that's a slow lane and it's humming along. You're not in a rush. You don't need to change lanes. You don't need to get off the freeway. You're on a long road trip. You're on cruise control and you're staying in the slow lane. And then the changes that you made in your business, they're in the fast lane. You're testing the speed limit a little bit. You're maybe going over to the slow lane when you think the thing is stabilized, and then you realize, I need to pivot, and you get back in the fast lane and you accelerate around a few slow cars, and then you get back in again, right? So you're literally 2 cars driving on the same road with the same destination in mind, just a different approach to driving. Because one has certainty that they know where they're going, they have plenty of time, they're not in a rush, they can just set the cruise control and go. And the other one is like, hey, I want to get there faster. I want to figure out how I can beat Waze and shave some time off. And so you're going to accelerate with the new offers, and then you're going to stabilize over in the slow lane, and then you're going to come back into the fast lane because you need to pivot and stay there for a little bit and kind of weave your way back and forth as you go. And that car in the slow lane, the irony is it's going to get there at the same time as you do in the fast lane. You guys will get to the same destination. You're all going to get to December together. And you will then see what the results were, right? So go ahead and make your changes. Just do it in February and use January to plan. Bottom line is that When people are confused, when people are stressed out, when people are undergoing change, they need something in their life that's a North Star and consistent. And your business can be that in January. If you are looking to retain attention, to capture attention, the best way to do that is for you to be predictable, for them to know what they're going to get from you. I know that it's super glamorous and sexy to think that you need to have all these flashy new things. In fact, you'll see other business owners like doing that and running sales and promotions. And I just think that like boring builds billions, right? That's what all of these billionaires say. It's totally cliche, but in some cases it's true. So enjoy your January. Spend a lot of time looking backwards, figuring out what worked and what didn't, what you want to do again, what you never want to do again. And then prioritize what you think you need to adjust and shift, and then work on that plan in January and implement it in February. And then freaking grow. Just go for it. I know that with intentionality, all of you can do it again. You can do your 2024 business again. You can hit those goals again, and you can grow. And you can do both things at the same time with focus and intentionality and consistency from you. I hope this was helpful. I would love to hear your feedback. Like I said, the growth formula framework is a link in the show notes, free resource for you. You can use it anytime. If you have any questions, let me know.